Thanks for sticking with us on election night here on WTOL 11. I'm Melissa Andrews.
And I'm Jeff Smith. Polls are officially closed now in both Ohio and Michigan in this midterm. We want to take a look at voter turnout we had here in Lucas County, with votes likely still being tallied at this hour. We are at almost 131,000 votes cast. The Lucas County Board of Elections saying right now we are at about 44% turnout. That is just below the number that we saw in the 2018 midterm election.
And that was 50% in 2018. As far as the race for who will be Ohio's governor for the next 4 years, CBS News and AP are projecting Governor DeWine as the winner, and those results came in just as soon as the polls closed here in Ohio at 7:30 with 0% reporting. Right now we're looking at 1% reporting DeWine, with 57% of the vote to Nan Whaley's 43%. This would be DeWine's second term, again beating out former Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley. And Ohio will have a new senator in Washington after Rob Portman decided not to run for re-election. This race is between Democrat Tim Ryan and Republican J.D. Vance. Again, we are just 1% as far as the precincts that are reporting right now. Tim Ryan leading slightly, 53 to 47%.
Other races of interest here locally and around the state. Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur is running for re-election, looking to keep representing District 9. However, Republican J.R. Majewski is hoping to take down the longest-serving woman in the history of the House of Representatives. And right now, with 0% reporting, these are some of the early ballots that came in. Marcy Kaptur with a sizable lead. But once again, very early tonight, J.R. Majewski telling our Dan Cummins earlier this week that he is confident about his possibility of winning. Well, tonight we have live crews at both of their watch parties, specifically in central Toledo. Marcy Kaptur at the UAW Local 12 Hall, waiting for those results to come in. Reporter Kaylee Marintet is there tonight. And in downtown Toledo, that is where Lucas County Republicans are hoping to see J.R. Majewski pull out a victory. Dan Cummins is covering that for us tonight. Melissa?
And in Michigan, where polls close in about 20 minutes, closed about 20 minutes ago, voters had the chance to amend their state constitution to make abortion available, something that since Roe v. Wade was overturned has been very controversial. Tatiana Cash is live in Adrian tonight with more on Prop 3. Tatiana.
That's right, Melissa. So Prop 3 is what it is if it's amended, or rather if it goes through, what's going to happen is it should change the Michigan state constitution to, in some cases, the state would regulate abortion for specific cases. It stops prosecution for those seeking to get an abortion, as well as those assisting those who are trying to get an abortion, and also allows those who are pregnant and wanting to get an abortion, even if they don't live in the state of Michigan, they're able to get one here. Now, when it comes to ballot proposal 3, it's an initiative petition, meaning that a group called Reproductive Freedom for All gathered and submitted more than 750,000 valid signatures. And voters that we talked to were kind of split on the decision.
All right, that is our Tatiana Cash at Adrian. We appreciate you joining us for these election results, this update. Stay with us here. We're going to rejoin CBS network coverage of the election.
You can also join us on WTOL.
Well, good evening and welcome to our special election night coverage of the midterm elections here on WTOL 11 Plus. I'm Jeff Smith.
And I'm Melissa Andrews. We'll cover a number of races and issues over the next 30 minutes with live team coverage and analysis from an elections expert. We start with the race for Ohio's governor for the next 4 years. This race called immediately as 0 precincts here in Ohio were reported right as polls closed at 7:30. CBS News projected Mike DeWine would win a second term. These are the numbers with 1% reporting. Former Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley was looking to become the first Democrat in that office since Ted Strickland back in 2011.
Meantime, in Michigan, Democrat Gretchen Whitmer, incumbent Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she is facing a challenge from Republican and political newcomer Tudor Dixon. And we've got just 1% reporting at this time. And once again, the incumbent Gretchen Whitmer with 66% of that vote. Very early in the counting. Just remember, the polls just closed in Michigan just about a half an hour ago.
Ohio will have a new senator in Washington after Rob Portman decided not to run for re-election. Democrat Tim Ryan is hoping to join Senator Sherrod Brown in the Senate. Meantime, Republican J.D. Vance has the backing of former President Donald Trump. Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur running for re-election in that district right now. You can see the results there, 2% reporting 57 to 43% right now in favor of Tim Ryan. Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur running for re-election in that district that was drastically redrawn following the 2020 census.
Yeah, the chase for District 9, and Republican J.R. Majewski defeated a number of other opponents in the primary to face off against what you know as the longest-serving woman in the history of the House of Representatives.
We have live team coverage of this race tonight. Dan Cummins is with the Lucas County Republican Party, hoping Majewski can pull out a win. But we do begin right now with Kaylee Marintet, who is at UAW Local 12, where Marcy Kaptur will be spending election night. Kaylee.
Hey, Melissa. Yeah, we're here at Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur's watch party in Toledo. It just got started about an hour and a half ago, and people aren't only here to support Kaptur, but also other Democrats on the ticket like Nancy Larson. Here's a look at the party going so far. Lots of people coming out, and they say they're confident with the results tonight. Kaptur isn't here just yet, and we're not sure when she is arriving, but lots of people here, and I spoke to a few and asked why they decided to show up and why they want the District 9 to stay blue.
Issue 21 makes a number of changes to the city charter, but maybe the most eye-catching is the extent.
We'll make sure to talk to people throughout the night and bring you the latest updates here of this race and also other Democrats' race that are on the ticket. But for now, reporting live in Central Toledo, Kaylee Marintet, WTOL 11.
All right, Kaylee, thanks so much. Now we go to Dan Cummins, who is in downtown Toledo with local Republicans there and the J.R. Majewski campaign. Dan?
Things really picked up. I did get a confirmation a few minutes ago, Mel, that J.R. Majewski will not be coming to town tonight, it looks like, unless it's very late tonight. He's making the rounds out in Ottawa County area with friends and supporters. We expect to see him at least tomorrow, probably, depending on how the elections go. Now, of course, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur has just run over all of her opponents all the way going back to 1982. Back in '84 was her tightest race. That was when she beat former TV anchorman Frank Benner, and he had 43% in that race. But right now what's happening is, with the changes in District 9, there are more Republican voters in this district after redistricting, and of course the success of J.R. Majewski's campaign late, riding with the fact that 28% of Americans are now saying they only approve of President Biden. 28% because of high crime, high inflation, issues at the border. And so J.R. Majewski is hoping, with all the attack ads Marcy's throwing at him right now, it shows that she's panicking.
When you look at the fact that she's spent millions of dollars against me, not really talking about what she can do or what has she done for the district, she's assassinating my character, and she's using her money to drown out who I really am. I am the antithesis of what she has put on TV, and I'm not a role model, I'm a real model. And when you see me on the campaign trail, when you see these folks coming up to me and talking to me, I'm developing individual relationships with these people. I care.
So we'll be here all the rest of the night. We'll see how District 9 shakes out, and maybe a late night for getting some of those results. Josh Williams, who's running against Nancy Larson for a state representative in District 41, he is here tonight, as well as some other Republican officials. Reporting live from downtown, I'm Dan Cummins, WTOL 11.
All right, Dan, thank you. Bob Latta is also up for re-election in a redrawn district. You see right there against Craig Swartz. 1% in right now in a tight race there, but that's another one we're going to be keeping a close eye on tonight.
We do have a guest to break all of this down tonight, a political science expert here in the Toledo area. Sam Nelson, you've helped us with many elections. Want to talk about some of the polling that we saw, because I think this can be a great tell. 80% of voters in an ABC News Post poll said that the economy was their top issue. 77% said the same about inflation. So what do you think this is going to say for what we will see tonight?
Well, that's not good news for Democratic candidates, and it's part of the explanation for Joe Biden's approval rating not being where he wants it to be, being pretty low. And I think that that's going to be a headwind for Democratic candidates and a tailwind for Republican candidates.
Only because they didn't campaign that hard on that issue, or was it early on that they saw we need to, if the Republicans are going to hang their hat on this, we're going to have to go for something else, like abortion rights?
I think the thing is that inflation affects everybody, but it's not something the president can really move the needle on. But he gets blamed for it, and his party gets blamed for it. So I'm not sure exactly how you run. It's a global phenomenon, and so I'm not sure what you could really do to kind of undercut the strength of inflation as an issue that helps Republicans. Abortion is a huge issue on its own. I don't think you have to make any special effort to bring that to the top of people's minds or have them thinking about it after the Dobbs decision over the summer from the Supreme Court. I think the thing there is that was big news in June. It's faded a little bit. People aren't thinking about it as much. Voters tend to be thinking about more recent things, like their last trip to the grocery store.
Or filling up the gas tank.
Yeah.
Yes. Let me ask you real quick, Melissa, let me jump in real quick. When you look at DeWine being selected so quickly and that race being called, does that give us any indication of how this Vance-Tim Ryan race is going to go, or even the J.R. Majewski-Marcy Kaptur race?
Well, I think people have been talking for a while about ticket splitters with the Senate race and the governor's race. And from the early returns, it looks like there's a huge gap that Tim Ryan's way outperforming Nan Whaley. That's really interesting. Who is that group of voters that voted for DeWine and has now voted for Tim Ryan? I'd love to talk to some of them.
Republicans really just need to pick up a few seats in Congress to really disrupt President Biden's agenda. What do you think they're going to be looking to do first if this red wave indeed happens?
I think that's a really good question, because I think there's going to be a bit of a battle within the Republican Party about what the priority should be. You've got some folks, they just want to go straight to impeachment and investigations and settling scores. And there are other more policy-minded people who maybe they've got some legislation they want to pass. I'm sure that there are Republicans who would like to get, especially if they take the Senate and the House, a nationwide abortion ban up really near the top of the session. But I think we're going to see a lot of non-legislative activity instead.
Do you think the talk on abortion will go back to a nationwide ruling versus sending the power back to the states due to the outcome of this election, whatever it is?
I think so. I think there's going to be a lot of talk about that. Now, obviously, Joe Biden's going to veto anything that a Republican Congress would pass along those lines. But that's where the debate could go. I don't know how to put this politely, but I'm not sure that sending it back to the states was ever really what was going to happen after the Supreme Court ruled.
Dr. Sam Nelson from the University of Toledo joining us here tonight. You're going to stay with us throughout the course of the evening as we continue to watch these returns roll in. Doctor, thank you.
Thanks. Toledoans got to decide if the city's charter should be changed, allowing a number of things to happen, including for a mayor to possibly serve 3 terms. Chase Bachman talked with Toledoans about this complex issue.
Issue 21 makes a number of changes to the city charter, but maybe the most eye-catching is the extension of term limits for mayor. There are 12 other provisions, including removing a city residency requirement for employees and the ability to use capital funds to improve roads. WTOL 11 spoke with Toledoans outside the early vote center, and many disagreed with the issue.
I think 2 years would be enough. 2 years would be enough because you don't want someone, a regime or someone ruling with an iron fist.
Many of the people we spoke with say they approve of the job current Mayor Wade Kapsakavich is doing, but disagree with longer terms on principle.
I like Mayor Wade, but I'm for term limits, and so I'm going to vote no.
Others, like Toledo Council member at large Katie Moline, have spoken out against the issue, saying combining so many unrelated issues is deceiving.
This is bad policy, and it's even furthered because I think it's been deceptive the whole time by, lumping so many charter amendments and so many charter changes into one bill is really deceptive to the Toledo voters, and that's why I voted against it, why I tried to amend it.
WTOL reached out to the mayor's office for comment on the issue. A spokesperson sent us this statement, which reads in part, Issue 21 isn't a tax, and yet its passage will allow even more roads in our city to be fixed. That is a bargain too good to pass up. People we spoke with say they also want improved roads, but the extended term limits are a deal breaker.
I don't like when they combine that because then they force you to make an uncomfortable choice either way. And I think that's the point, and I don't think that they should do that.
They hope other voters can weigh each part of the issue and make an informed decision.
When I first initially read it, I was like, oh, this is great. I think I'll vote for it. And then actually, as I got feedback from family and friends, I'm like, oh, I probably should read the whole thing. And that's when I noticed, there was, that extra part in there that I'm not really interested in extending the mayoral term.
Chase Bachman tonight with the insight into issue 21 here, facing Toledo voters throughout the day here on this election day, waiting for the results on that one to come in as well. Bowling Green City Schools went back to voters once again, trying to build up enough support to build a new school, this time a high school. Kaylee Kirby is live in Bowling Green for us tonight. Kaylee, pick it up from there.
Yeah, Jeff, district leaders are hoping voters will side with them in building a new high school for the district. But will history repeat itself again after 3 failed levies to build a new elementary school? It is now in the voters' hands as polling locations are closed. If voters do approve the levy, it would bring in $70 million to build a new high school. This issue is split between a 7-year income tax portion at 0.5% and a 30-year 3.95 mil property tax portion. District leaders have said outdated buildings need to be replaced, but voters we spoke with yesterday seem split on whether this is the right move, asking them to approve it.
The building itself is old and dated, and it is just run down. And not that we can't teach and our children can't learn, but they're entitled to better situations.
In my opinion, before they should have fixed up what they had, but I don't think that any additional funding is necessary as far as I think there's enough allocated as it is from the state. I think the high school is fine at this point, and that's about, as far as I can say, it's probably, it should be good for a few more years, in my opinion.
So as we know, polls are closed. It's now a waiting game to see what voters will decide, if they will approve this or if history will repeat itself. We will, again, keep you updated online and on air. Reporting live in Bowling Green, Kaylee Kirby, WTOL 11.
Kaylee, thanks. Ohioans had a pair of statewide issues to vote on in this election. Issue 1 would impact whether judges would be required to consider public safety when they set bail. And here are the results right now, with 1% of precincts reporting. 75% agreed to issue 1, 25% saying no at this time. Trent Croce gives us a look at both sides of this issue.
This is just common sense, and judges are supposed to judge. And one of the things that includes is the equities between public safety and the defendant's rights.
Ohio's Attorney General Dave Yost supports Ohio's Issue 1 as he is one of the people who helped write it. Bowling Green State Senator Teresa Gavarone is right by his side, too, as she helped draft it after a Supreme Court decision to lower an accused criminal's bond in January.
But what this legislation does is says courts are going to consider public safety and the severity of the offense and past criminal history when setting bail.
Opponents like Pete Van Leer from Policy Matters, a group who works to create a sustainable, inclusive economy, say Ohio already has laws in place.
But there are ways to deal with public safety threats without using bail, because what bail does in Ohio currently, and what Issue 1 would basically double down on, is creating a system and prolonging a system of wealth-based detention.
Emily Cole, executive director of Ohio Families Unite for Political Action, works against police brutality and gun violence. Cole is also opposed to the issue.
Many of the folks that I have the honor of working with are lower income, they're minorities, Black or brown Ohioans, and issue 1 would 100% disproportionately impact them.
Cole says there's plenty of other remedies available, which is why she's against.
Really won't do anything to make us safer at all, because if someone has more money, they would still be able to post their bail and be back out.
But supporters like Yost say just because someone is poor doesn't mean they will stay in jail. And at the end of the day, public safety is core.
That's what the people want. We can have fair bail and a presumption of innocence and protect our communities.
All right, Trent Croce with that report there. Michigan voters, they had 3 different issues on the ballot today. We are focusing on ballot proposal 3, which impacts reproductive rights for Michigan residents. Tatiana Cash, as you look at it right there, 1% reporting right now, and boy, it is close. Not too many votes in at this point, but once again, it is still very early. The polls have only been closed for 45 minutes now. Tatiana Cash has more on what this issue would do.
Several Michiganders we spoke with said they were against ballot proposal 3 because topics other than abortion were included. But WTOL 11 obtained an empty Michigan voter ballot, and the language in Prop 3 mentions nothing about termination of parental rights, nothing about discrimination against minorities or people in need. It just covers reproductive rights. Many WTOL 11 spoke to, like James and Sarah, agree voting on the issue is important.
Just make sure that you have your opinion really, stated, because, you don't want, this action being, put forward without you having an opinion on it.
Especially for that, every vote does count. So please go vote.
Ballot Proposal 3 is an initiative petition, meaning a group called Reproductive Freedom for All gathered and submitted more than 750,000 valid signatures of registered Michigan voters to get this put on the general election ballot. And Prop 3 is an amendment to the state constitution, if passed, would allow Michigan to regulate abortion in specific cases, stop prosecution of anyone trying to get an abortion or anyone helping a pregnant person get an abortion, and allows abortions for pregnant people not living in Michigan.
Women should have access to the health care that they need, and I feel like really men in general shouldn't really have an opinion on this. I think that they should probably keep it to themselves.
To me, a baby's life is important, and although there are very, very tragic situations, terrible things that happen and all of that, it does not change the fact.
All right, Tatiana Cash with that report right there. Let's talk about some other things that voters were facing here in Ohio today. Races for the Ohio Supreme Court are maybe getting a little bit more attention this year than others. That's thanks in part to the role that justices played in Ohio's redistricting process. The court will have a new Chief Justice after Maureen O'Connor passed the mandated age limit. Right here, you're looking at Jennifer Bruner up against Sharon Kennedy, and the results coming in. 7% of the precincts reporting in across the state of Ohio, and right now you are seeing a very tight race there.
Another Justice, Pat Fisher, is up for election. Here are the results so far right now. Also a very close race between Terry Jamison with 51%, slightly ahead there with 7% of precincts reporting.
And Pat DeWine looking for another term on the bench. He is actually the governor's son right now against Marilyn Zayas. They are in a tight race as well. 7% once again of those precincts reporting in at this point.
Toledoans will have a new person representing them in the state Senate. Teresa Fetter currently holds that seat, but she is not running for re-election. Instead, focusing and running on a seat for the State Board of Education. Current state representative Paula Hicks Hudson and Toledoan Tony Dia are vying for that state Senate seat. Right now, we're showing 0% reporting, should be about 7% reporting right now. Paula Hicks Hudson leading that race by 2/3 against Tony Dia.
Some new faces will also represent Lucas County as state representatives. District 41 would cover parts of North Toledo, Oregon, and Jerusalem Township. Democrat Nancy Larson facing off against Republican Josh Williams. And right now, Larson with a very early lead. Melissa?
District 42 covers the southwest portion of Lucas County. Incumbent Derek Marin is hoping to keep his seat. Democrat Erica White trying to unseat him. White is currently leading in that race right now, 61 to 39%.
A lot of ad time being purchased by those two candidates. Also, District 43 would represent the northwest portion of Lucas County. Toledo City Council member Michelle Grimm has the support of the local Democratic Party, and Wendy Hendricks is her Republican opponent. And right now, Michelle Grimm is with a sizable lead. However, very early and only 0% reporting in.
Let's talk about District 44. That covers part of Lucas, Wood, and Ottawa counties. Democrat Elgin Rogers Jr. is facing off against Republican Roy Palmer III. Right now, Rogers Jr. handily leading that race with 77% of the vote.
Dr. Sam Nelson from the University of Toledo here on set once again, joining us, standing by with us tonight as we watch some of these initial results trickle in. But Doctor, I want to start off talking about something. Before we went into all of those state rep, we started talking about the redistricting and what you watched unfold this year. One time, let's go back at it again. Let's go back at it a third time. Let's do this again. What was your read on that?
Well,
was it comical?
Well, yeah, and it was also really, frankly, shocking to see the Redistricting Commission simply ignore the decisions of the state Supreme Court. I mean, we voted in districts that are, according to the court, unconstitutional according to the Ohio Constitution. That strikes me as a breakdown in rule of law. I think we're going to see...
And also a paradox.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's, you know, what counts here? The Constitution, the decisions of the Supreme Court, or just what people decide to go ahead and do? This is obviously going to be in federal litigation. I would suspect in 24 that we vote in different districts. Supreme Court's probably going to make it a lot easier for the Redistricting Commission to do what it wants to do. They might redraw the districts in a more favorable way. Or maybe it'll be surprising and they'll do something that causes us to go back to redraw them more evenly.
Yeah, currently, according to the state Supreme Court, people are voting in unconstitutional districts for this election. This affected many candidates, including Marcy Kaptur, who's been a U.S. representative for 4 decades, put her in a lot more red territory, which allowed J.R. Majewski to really give her a fight. Do you, and Dan Cummins reported tonight that Marcy Kaptur's campaign spent more money than ever. Talk about that race.
Well, I think, yeah, she's facing a bunch of voters that she's never faced before, rural voters in the western part of the state that she doesn't have a relationship with, that don't know her, that are not particularly inclined to her key issues, that are more focused on Toledo and the environment. And so this really stirs the pot for her. It puts her in a tough position. She's spending a lot of money to paint a picture about her opponent, to try to squeak this one out and hope maybe the next one, the district's a little more favorable.
Let me ask you, you've used the words favorable, you've used the words more fair. Is there more favorable? Is there more fair? I mean, is there a perfect solution here? Somebody's going to be upset no matter what is done, and we've only got about a minute.
That's certainly true. I think the provisions, though, in the constitutional amendment that the voters overwhelmingly approved, Democrats and Republican voters, right? It was a big bipartisan majority, kind of spell out a process to end up with districts that should make the legislature reflect the voters in the state rather than giving a big advantage to one party. I think those procedures can work with a good faith effort to make them work and to follow them.
Lots going to happen in the next 2 years.
Absolutely. And it just, I think the midterms getting everybody kind of, to use the term, juiced up, ready for the presidential election, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And presidential election starts tomorrow morning.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And that's the mindset that we think not only these politicians have, but also all the analysts and even you, as you think about your classes going forward.
Yeah.
Dr. Sam Nelson from the University of Toledo, thank you so much for joining us, and join us tonight at 10 and 11. And Sam will be back to give more insight as we learn about what's happening across the country right now.
This is our special election coverage here on WTOL 11+. As Melissa said, we've got so much more coming your way tonight at 11 on WTOL 11. And please do check out WTOL.com for the very latest as we continue to watch all of this trickle in tonight on what is an historical night.